Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast NBA edition. We are back as the NBA season is starting literally 10 days from the day we are recording. It starts on the 19th of October. So we got to have our basketball aficionado with us, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Martin. 10 days to NBA Christmas. I'm excited. How are you today?
I'm excited as well, man, that we're so close to the NBA, and October from a sports perspective for me is one of the best months of the year because you got college football is already in full swing, NFL's in full swing, NBA starting in 10 days, MLB, they're already in the playoffs, we'll have the World Series. I just always feel like October is that prime sports month of the year.
It is. August and July really start to drag until college football comes back. And then, again, once we start getting, preseason games like we are now in NBA land, it's a great time to be a sports fan if those are your couple sports here.
And for people who have listened to us do this one before, you know how we're going to do it. We're going to try and decide who's going to make the playoffs this year, talk about some MVP, maybe talk about some before season starting champions. But before we do that, we're going to talk about some important stories that have happened since the last time we were on the air for y'all. The Boston Celtics coach, Ime Udoka, as you know, he was suspended about a couple weeks ago about breaking a violation of team policies. According to the reports, Udoka had a relationship with a female subordinate on the staff. The suspension was announced September 22nd. Udoka released a statement saying he wants to apologize. He's not going to be talking for a while. If you know, he's engaged to Nia Long. They have a son together. He's gone. Brad Stevens and the owner of the Celtics, they did a press conference, which really didn't say much about nothing. Evan, what are your thoughts about this situation? Because I have some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's Ime is suspended for the entirety of this upcoming season, playoffs included. There's a lot of thoughts. The press conference was a dud, wasn't entirely helpful, I guess. I mean, stuff's still vague. I mean, it's there's that phrase about for both parties in this. I mean, what it is, I mean, let's boil it down to, hey, it's an affair with a high-profile member of your organization and a subordinate. So, ethically, there's waves of that hurt your organizational culture. Then you put your organization and the people who cut your check in a tough spot to make some tough calls on a number of different things. At a certain point, it takes two to tango, essentially. So, I mean, both parties, are, in my opinion, are at fault. Again, we can get into the ethics. I'm always going to be harsher on being a male. I'm always going to be harsher on other males that, especially when they leverage positions and everything else. Again, and we don't know the backstory on if Ime truly did. I can make some assumptions that, probably did. You're the head coach of the second winningest franchise in NBA history. So again, there's some things that come along with that. So I mean, there's tons of different ways. I'm curious to know your thoughts, again, on everything in between. I mean, professionally, I mean, common sense, you can't do that. Everything else, it's just, I mean, you just can't. I mean, that's a culture killer. I mean, I'll be really surprised if Ime comes back and coaches this team. I mean, I think Boston's kind of leaked some things of, hey, if he wants to look elsewhere for somebody to give him a fresh start on something else, they're probably going to go that route. Unfortunately, kind of their backup plan, up-and-coming coach is now the Utah Jazz's head coach. So, I mean, there goes your plan B. If this would have happened or news would have come out, 4, 5, 6 months ago. But it's weird how the Celtics handled it. I don't think they helped themselves in this. I mean, just because they were so close to the vest. But, I mean, again, professionally, ethically, you just can't engage in this when you're, in the high-profile jobs you are, when there's kids involved, everything else across the board. So, Martin, your thoughts?
So when it first came out, obviously, I mean, the whole thing is that's been said is it was a consensual relationship. So what that means is two adults. There was no one, whatever. There was no criminal charges. There have been no criminal charges. So this wasn't sexual assault or anything of that, or we'd be having a whole different conversation. This was a consensual relationship where two people were unfaithful to their other people, obviously to Nia Long for Udoka and to whoever this Celtics person was, whoever she is married to. Like you, I mean, I don't condone cheating by any sense of the word. If you just want to be done with someone, just break up with them and get it over with. But in the grand
Does the
scheme of,
punishment fit the crime?
huh?
Does the punishment fit the crime?
No, 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 no.
For everything I said, I don't think so either.
Yeah, like from a personal thing, but like objectively, I get it. Some people have different morals than you and I, and they think that's okay, and they're going to do that, and that's their choices, that's their lives. Can't tell them how to live. But from the Udoka side, you signed a contract, so you know this was not allowed to happen, like to do. So you thought you could sneak around behind your contract, which is bad. That part is bad. Like that is your fault. You should know better. You shouldn't have been taking those risks and all of that. But suspending someone for a year for cheating, I don't like that at all. And I've heard all the arguments. I've heard like Stephen A, like all the people, and Matt Barnes saying there's a lot worse.
I was going to ask about Matt Barnes.
Yeah.
If the world knew what I knew, I mean, it would be awful.
Yeah, which is something saying from him because you know he had his whole situation with Derek Fisher and his wife or ex-wife right now. So him saying
he's the moral pillar, don't you know?
Yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. But I don't like it. One, because they could have handled that. I mean, we've worked in fields. That could have been a whole HR issue and they would have been taken care of. It didn't have to be publicized, press conference, all of that. I didn't like that either. I didn't like how they suspended him for a year and then said we'll reevaluate next year. So he might not even have his job next year. And like you said, other teams inquiring about him, and then they'll just leak some other stuff out. And I mean, I also don't like how I guess he's the head coach, so it's super publicized, but I still don't agree with that. Like you said, there's two to tango, and no one knows who that woman is. Like, there's nothing from the Boston camp saying if she's taking responsibility, if that's in like their code of conduct as well. Is that only a player coach thing? Or is that if you're employed with Boston thing? Because then she should be in trouble as well.
Yeah, I've got to put, I don't think the punishment fits the crime with details we know. If there's other details, I think we could rationally get to, I could kind of see where they came with, a full season kind of thing. So I'm left to assume a couple things here. So I think in a vacuum, I think the Boston Celtics are smart enough to know that in a vacuum, hey, if there is a consensual affair between two staff members that happened outside of team facilities, not using team funds to facilitate, not, you name it, like were there bribes involved to keep people quiet, those kinds across the board, that if it's in a vacuum and on their own time they're doing X, Y, and Z, then the punishment does not fit the crime. But since we know the punishment and we don't necessarily know the full extent of the crime, I'm left to assume that some of these relations likely happened utilizing team funds, utilizing team-owned vehicles or facilities, and there's many different layers and tiers to this. So again, that's all just assumptions on my part. Again, I'd like to assume that the entire legal weight that the best money can buy from the Boston Celtics perspective has gone into this and interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people and you name it across the board to paint a picture of what happened. That I would assume that if some of the things I just were projecting were not true, we would not see a year suspension.
Yeah, so their thing, a year. But I also don't like when you watch that press conference, they're like, how'd you get to a year? And I forget the guy who was the head honcho of Boston. He's like, oh, it was just a gut feeling. So there's nothing written in place how to deal with these things.
Yeah, there's no handbook for dumb, and that's what this is.
Because like I can get if it's like, oh, if this happens for the first time, you're suspended from whatever your position is without like if it's written clearly there. But him to just be like, oh, I just picked a year, so you could have picked anything you wanted, but there's nothing in place for that. But I just what he did was wrong in terms of it's in your contract, so you shouldn't be doing it. But like it takes two, and that's where I guess I'm truly stuck at. Like he's the only one getting.
For the Celtics, they've got a lot. They've got a lot to figure out. They're still going to put a really good team on the court, a team that just went to the NBA Finals, and this wasn't on their radar, and this wasn't on the fans' radar for May. And again, from our armchair position, we're fans, we're podcasters who dissect the NBA moves and everything else, and we're not in the throes of running a basketball team. But yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of questions to this. But again, on paper, can the folks drawing up the X's and O's now and making the playing time decisions and everything else put the Celtics in a position to get back, to the NBA Finals and ultimately win a championship? We'll get into that in a little bit. Martin, let's shift gears. So again, it wouldn't be the NBA without drama in the off season. Let's go probably to the next largest storyline that happened in the last 3 months. So let's go to an altercation that happened in a Warriors practice in the last 7 to 10 days. So for those unfamiliar, it started to be discussed, that there was an altercation with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors. It resulted in, Green hitting Poole. And then the footage got leaked and we saw it. So Poole was on baseline. On the sideline was Green, as some practice was going on. You could tell there was some conversation going on, to which Draymond came straight up into Poole's grill. They're chest to chest, face to face. Poole shoves him, and Draymond responds with a right hand to the head as players are breaking the two up. So tons of different thoughts here. So you've got some moving parts. So one is, interesting enough, that's awful public relations for the Golden State Warriors to the most you've heard from them, essentially, besides having a fake little press conference with Draymond Green to publicly apologize after the video came out. That wouldn't have happened if the video hadn't come out. So that tells you how genuine that was from Draymond's heart. We're gonna exhaust all legal resources to find out how the footage came out. That's not the card to play. That's bad. So you have this going on. You have other players chiming in from across the league, and we assume this is the case too, right? That these things happen in practice from time to time, where there's some heated exchanges and some jarring between teammates. And I know Damian Lillard came out and said, "Hey, that stuff usually we keep in house." I think there's a perspective of this too. Is does Draymond even really, as much as I'm not a big fan of how he carries himself on the court and with his podcast and how vocal he is and everything else, that again, if he's apologized to Poole, they're good, and he's apologized to his team, what more is there to do publicly? Again, I think that whole thing was just a manufactured manifestation of, you got to check a box and say you apologize and you're going to step away from the team for a little bit and be vague, which is going to equate to him missing some preseason. Martin, what are your thoughts, man? This is all over the place, but it's been dominating NBA storylines for the last week.
So one of the things you said, which I am hugely against, is after the fact, when something happens or gets leaked, you apologize. I'm one of those people where, especially with this media thing, if you
I'm sorry the footage you got out.
Yeah.
Regards, Draymond.
Yeah. So like if that doesn't get out, there's no public apology. There's none of this stuff. So that's one thing. And then the Warriors showing we need to figure out who's a mole in our organization, selling it for $2 million to TMZ, by the way.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. So that's their primary focus. But watching that whole situation, that I wasn't a fan of Draymond stuff. I really wasn't. he got in Poole's face. Poole told him to get away, and then he basically sucker punched him because the rules of escalation. No one thought it was going to get to that point where you're physically punching someone. So that's all Draymond's fault. For a guy who talks the way he trash talks and all the games and all that, to just sucker punch his own teammate, not a fan of that. But like you said, he's already apologized.
Damian Lillard's comment specifically on this?
I didn't see Lillard's. I've seen like Isaiah Thomas's. I've seen Shannon Sharp's. Like
I think Dame really kind of put things in perspective to an extent. Like he probably wanted to say some things like this. Steve Kerr tried to come out and, he's in a tough spot because, again, this team is as prolific as it is historically, and he's got to keep the gang together and play both sides. And, I've probably seen 20 some fights like this in my career, altercations or whatever you want to call it. But Dame kind of talked about, the unspoken. He said too that these things happen. Again, it's like, you keep it in house and yada, yada, yada. But, he said too, having watched the video, that there's some unspoken, like tacit agreements that you enter into with your verbal and nonverbal communication, right? So if you're jarring at somebody, they expect to be jarred back. If you escalate and walk towards somebody, expect a reaction back. And through each tier of escalation, there's going to be a reaction to it from 99% of people. So let's say Jordan Poole started talking trash, and you better expect Draymond Green, if you're talking trash to him, is gonna jar back. When Draymond approaches Jordan Poole, and gets like chest to chest, face to face, you better expect him to remove himself from you or push off like that. From there, I probably would have, if I've been pushed, I'd have tried to make a gesture to push back, and that'd have been that. I would have jumped straight to, let me just cold clock somebody in the head like Draymond did. So, we can get into the steps that I think most people probably land that is, hey, listen, like there's no need to escalate to that extent. But I liked how Dame painted a picture of, again, there's just some understood things of just, hey, for every reaction there is an opposite reaction. So.
Agreed. And, it's just the defending champion, so a little bit of controversy to start the season. It's okay.
Where's Andrew Wiggins in this fight?
Oh, I have no idea. Well,
that's what I want to know is, where's Mr. Wiggins?
I have no idea. It's funny, too, because that leaked video, I don't see any stars actually, know.
Man, I'm being sarcastic in this, thinking back to Jimmy Butler on the T-Wolves, dogging that he's got no fight in him and everything else. Andrew Wiggins when he was on the T-Wolves, and I'm going to say he was the furthest away from this. But that's in jest. But what's not in jest is some very serious debate, Martin, on our NBA projections for the year. So famously, in the last couple of years, we have gone to the casino. We've rolled the dice. We've bet all on red and black, and we've hit on some things. Most notably, our Phoenix Suns in recent years. You might be surprised, and maybe you're in the same spot where I have them this year. And we've also whiffed on some things. I've called some Luka MVP runs here that just haven't happened. Again, when we've done playoff projections too, we missed here and there on some things. But Martin, it is that time of year. I'll let you pick the conference and run the show, and then we'll go from there in terms of projections. So I'd assume we're probably going to do 1 through 10, right?
Yeah, 1 through,
including the plan.
Yep, 1 through 10. We will do that. Let's start with our conference. Let's start with the Eastern Conference.
Sounds good to me.
I guess one that we can just do now and get it out of the way, since we did almost a whole podcast on them, are Cleveland Cavaliers. And if you haven't listened to our Cavs year in review thing, make sure you listen to that before you listen to this, so you can see our reasoning for why we're going to do that. So, Evan, just with the Cavs, this is on VegasInsider.com, Bleacher Report, all of that. People are predicting the Cavs are going to win 47.5 games this year. Do you think that's too low? You think that's too high? Or you think that's just right?
Martin, I think that's too low. So again, so in our last podcast, obviously we talked about the acquisition of Donovan Mitchell. They've gotten backup point guard help now too. So, again, they essentially swapped a bunch of assets that, were in the future and basically traded Lauri Markkanen for Donovan Mitchell straight up, per se. I mean, obviously with context, it wasn't on the team last year. So for folks on the team last year who played, it was essentially Markkanen for Mitchell straight up. And so Vegas is going to tell me that taking out Markkanen, adding Mitchell is only worth 3 more wins. I'm not buying it. Too low. Now, granted, again, injuries are anything that's the ultimate projection derailer, right? Across the board for different teams. But I'm going to say that's too low. So I'm curious to know, do you land in the same spot?
Oh yeah, I think 50 is the minimum. I think I said that on our Cavs thing. 50 is the minimum. And of course, we have to do the caveat. If everyone's healthy, yeah, I think 50 is the minimum. Minimum. Yeah. So I just want to stay with the Cavs though, and then we'll go around them. Playoff wise, because we're both gonna have them making the playoffs this year. Where do you have the Cavs? And I'm going to write it down.
So I've seen and I've read and the television shows, I've read articles, I've listened to podcasts, that there's a lot of indecisive folks, I think, around the league, also making projections that they look at the Atlanta Hawks and they look at the Cleveland Cavaliers and they don't know what to do with them. From that perspective, there's a lot of talk of, hey, they're in that kind of 6, 7, 8 range. I'm going to tell you, I have them higher. I have them as a home court hosting first round team. And Martin, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers projected to end the regular season as the 4 seed in the East.
I agree. I have them right on that 4 seed, around a 50-32 record to be exact. So
I'm not going to go record just yet, but I know 47's too low.
Oh, they'll win.
But I'm with you.
Games.
Yep, I've got them at 4.
So Cavs are going to be right in the middle for us in the Eastern Conference. And now let's work our way. Let's start at the top. Who's going to be the top of the Eastern Conference?
I have the folks from the Cream City, the Milwaukee Bucks at number 1.
Okay. So we got the 2020 champs, 21 champs.
Yeah, so I had projected them. Yeah, I'd projected them before the Middleton injury to win the title last year. Obviously, that derailed a lot of things. So, the Bucks will get him back at some point. Really high on Marjon Beauchamp, their draft pick from this year. Really long shooting guard defensively. One of those guys who's 6'5" but has a much longer wingspan. Just really gritty defensively as well too. So, and then their long-term investment coming off of a knee injury is you get Joe Ingles, in theory, some version of Joe Ingles popping threes, about playoff time. So he'll be out most of the entire season. You get Serge Ibaka back, who's played a little bit more in preseason too. So, I mean, I know he really wasn't much of anything last year due to injuries. Again, I really like, what I've seen out of Lindell Wigginton, Grayson Allen, Javon Carter. But again, you add Marjon Beauchamp, and you get Chris Middleton back, and you've got Joe Ingles coming at the end of the regular season, plus Giannis in his prime. So I've got them and their length at number 1.
Question: do you think they would have went to the finals if they would have had Chris Middleton?
That's tough. I think they would have, and if they were the team playing Golden State, I think they beat them.
Okay. I do remember we said that whoever won that Boston-Milwaukee thing was going to the finals.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have any disagreements with the Bucks. at one for all the things you just said, just from a sports talk thing. I think they're going to really want it because they're going to have that thought like, hey, if we were fully healthy, we would have won the game. But I mean, would have won the series. So that's one of those things where I think they're going to be coming out all firing on all cylinders. And Giannis in the regular season is just utterly ridiculous. So he himself is what. Mm-hmm.
You're about to tell me you have the Boston Celtics one, don't you?
No, I'm going to take the Bucks. I am taking the Bucks. Okay. Our number twos might be different though, but I'm taking the Bucks.
Who do you got number two?
I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid, and since there's no COVID restrictions right now, I'm going to take the Brooklyn Nets.
You're going to take the Brooklyn Nets?
I'm going to do it.
I've got them 6.
Well, here is where I'm going to do. Kevin Durant, one of the, definitely top 2 best players in the world right now. And that's a prove-it team. Kyrie, Benjamin, who I can't even say he's going to play.
He played a game.
I know. We got to see him play. But I just feel like the talent is a lot. They do have a lot of talent. But I'm going to take the Kool-Aid and say that the Nets will be a 2 seed. And this is in my perfect world of no drama. Everyone's healthy. Who do you have it to?
So I've got the defending Eastern Conference champs, the Boston Celtics, at number 2. So jumping down, so I've identified 1, 2, 4, and 6 now. So with the Nets, I don't disagree with the talent there. When Steph Curry comes back and is healthy, I think, again, Ben Simmons is a perennial all-world defender, period, the end. I mean, again, what we talk about PJ Tuckers of the world and everything else, I mean, he is elite. And to another ball handler, you name it. So, I mean, I did watch his first preseason game, attacking the basket. He's still not, shooting, with his correct hand, in my opinion, all those types of things. But I see the Nets more as a 6 seed. Again, I think they know at the age that Kyrie and Kevin Durant are, for everything they are, I just generally question whether they have it every night when they have it that back-to-back in your Orlando and Miami, where you're on the West Coast swing and you've got 4 games in 6 nights kind of thing on the road, that they're going to have that they're not going to do rest. One of them's not going to rest versus the other and everything else. And ultimately, I think, the Nets know, again, these are projections for where we think they'll land before the playoffs. I think the Nets know when money time is. I mean, we saw some Cavs teams perfectly content to be the 3, 4, 5 seed because they had LeBron and they knew it. So they knew, hey, we'll flip the switch and we'll turn it on. And we saw that year in and year out. It didn't matter who was the number 1 seed per se, because we had LeBron James on our team from the Cavs. And I that's the perspective I see more, and that's the framework more I see the Nets operating in as a 6 seed.
Okay. Who do you have as your 3rd seed?
I have the top 3 MVP candidates.
Oh, already giving a spoiler. Okay.
And the beard at number 3 in the Philadelphia 76ers, who are doing everything they can to reassemble the Houston Rockets plus Embiid. They've signed Eddie House. They gave way too much money to an old PJ Tucker that's really kind of a $30 million over 3 years, really just to play him this season, because, I mean, he's going to be eclipsing 40 by the end of this deal. Who knows where he'll be or what he'll be by then. But in 2, I mean, again, like, I think if we look at up-and-coming folks across the league that don't get their due, this is the year for Tyrese Maxey, that everybody's going to be, that you're going to think of Tyrese Maxey in the same regard. I think we've seen flashes of it, but you're going to think of Tyrese Maxey in the same way you look at a Michael Porter Jr. You're going to look at, a Jordan Poole, some of those rounds. The guy can just flat out get buckets. Now, he's not worth a darn on the defensive end of the court, but this is going to be arguably a 20-point per game scorer that can carry the load, for Harden on the scoring side, that, we'll see Harden consistently play make and everything else and put up shops, but he doesn't need to go out and attempt to be what he once was, even though we know Harden doesn't have that in him anymore. in my opinion. But, between Tyrese Maxey, between some of those acquisitions, I've got the Philadelphia 76ers at 3.
I got, Eastern Conference champs. I got Boston Celtics at 3. I just feel like they'll take a little setback. Well, I don't even know if I'm going to call it a setback, because last year there was a point where we thought they were dead, and then they went to the finals. So Boston, you never know. But right now, I'm going to say they're going to be the 3rd seed.
So I think we both landed on Cavs at 4, correct?
Yep.
All right, Martin, this will be an interesting one. So you know where my 6 is. Why don't you go ahead and list your 5 and 6, and I'll give you 5.
Okay. My number 5 team, I am taking the Sixers. And then my number 6 team, I'm taking the Heat.
Okay. So why those 2 in that order?
The Sixers won. Man, if people listen to this podcast, I'm not really the greatest fan of James Harden, especially during the playoffs. And he hasn't shown me anything in the playoffs, even though now he said he's lost 100 pounds. But we'll see how that goes. I just don't believe in them when it comes to playoff basketball. I don't believe in their coach when it comes to the playoffs of recent memory of Doc Rivers. So I just don't believe that they're going to be able to get it done. The Heat at 6, I just feel like with the Nets fully healthy, Boston going to start hot, the Cavs being better, Sixers, I just feel like I had to slide them down, but I just didn't want to disrespect them because this is a team that's been in Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals the past 3 years. So that's how I landed them for me.
So I have the Nets at 6, and I have the Miami Heat at 5. So again, I mean, we've seen Jimmy Butler go on some runs. Duncan Robinson had an incredible night last night, efficiency-wise, that could be a bounce back here. They just gave Tyler Hero the bag. Again, they're still trying to see what they have in post-major injury Victor Oladipo 2 seasons out. There's a lot of pieces there, too. This has been perennially a team that's been a top 3 teams the last couple of years that I think we both see slide in a couple spots than, where normally they would be. So, Martin, those are our 6 teams that are guaranteed not playing teams. So the first thing that stands out to me is neither of us have the darlings of NBA internet, the Toronto Raptors, in our top 6. So I think, again, most projections I've seen, everybody wants to anoint them the crown. And, again, I think they've obviously got some proven vets in Siakam and Freddie VanVleet. And, again, we were both a little missed about the Rookie of the Year voting last year. But obviously Scotty Barnes is a proven talent. They acquire Otto Porter Jr. Martin, where do you have the Toronto Raptors? 06.
I have the Toronto Raptors at 8.
I do too. I think the East is that competitive. And again, we could be splitting hairs. I mean, the difference between 6 and 8 could be a game and a half when it's all said and done. This might be one of the most challenging years, I think, in the Eastern Conference in 10, 15 years to peg these places apart. So, I mean, again, while they land 8, I mean, it could be a game and a half difference between some of these seeds when it's all said and done. So who do you have at 7? Hawks?
Yep.
Same.
Yep, I got the ATL Hawks.
So obviously Atlanta with their big acquisition with DeJounte Murray. Who knows what they'll do on the deadline? They've only tried to trade John Collins for like the last 30 years. So, any other comments on those 2 teams?
Oh no, I think we've hit them. In the old school days, this would be the 8 teams, and that would be it. But now we have playing games.
So, Martin, who do you have for the last 2 in? So this could be interesting. The 9 and 10 seed in the East for the play-in tournament to play the Hawks and Raptors at this state.
So the 9th team, which is interesting because Charlotte always has seen away with LaMelo Ball to like sneak into these playing games and get stomped. I think 9, don't know if he's going to be playing fully when he's going to come back, but I think I'm going to take the Bulls.
Okay. So
I do love Zach LaVine, and At 10, oof, I believe I had Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte. I wanted to pick the Wizards, but no.
So, yeah, I mean, Charlotte's usually in contention more to be a top 10 than they are, a bottom 6 essentially in the, or a bottom 5 in the East. But it might be a 6 here soon. Wink, wink, knock, knock, Vegas and Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got at number 9, I have the team that plays in one of my favorite on TV arenas to watch and listen in the world. You know where I'm going. I have the New York Knicks.
Okay.
So I have the New York. Yep, I have the New York Knicks with newly acquired Jalen Brunson alongside R.J. Barrett and crew. So I have them at number 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 10, I also have the Chicago Bulls as one of my 2 last-in play-in teams as well. So obviously we'll see what happens with what would be, I think, year 3 of Patrick Williams, the real young and raw, lengthy wing. You've got Zach LaVine, you've got DeMar DeRozan, who, can go on some runs during the regular season himself, keep you in. Vucevic. Again, there's some depth there. They came on real strong and then they just faded at the end of the year last year, similar to the Cavs. They didn't have near the injuries the Cavs did, but those are a top 10 teams. So just recapping, my 10, again, 1 through 10, Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, Cavs are your home court hosts. Guaranteed 5-6 Heat, Nets, 7-8 Hawks, Raptors, 9-10 Knicks, Bulls.
Yeah, and I had Bucks 1, Nets 2, Celtics 3, Cavs 4, Sixers 5, Heat 6, Hawks, Raptors, Bulls, and Charlotte. So the only difference that we had was teams is New York and Charlotte. Which isn't bad.
Very, very interesting. But again, it's splitting hairs. This is going to be tough for the Eastern Conference this year. I mean, it's going to be grueling. Again, we haven't talked about. I think the Detroit Pistons are going to be frisky.
Okay.
They acquired Bogdanovich. Again, this is year 2 of Cunningham. They got obviously Mr. Ivy from Purdue, who's again going to be just lightning in a bottle. I think as a shooting guard, attacking the basket, everything else. They've got some pieces in there that I think they're going to be frisky. I didn't name Charlotte. Charlotte's always frisky. Again, Orlando is going to end up probably being towards the bottom for sure. But again, I think they're going to be in some close contests throughout the year with Paolo and everybody else. So Martin, we split hairs in the East. So let's shift it west and let's go in reverse order here. So at number 10,
ooh, we're going in reverse order. Okay.
The Mike Brown-led Sacramento Kings.
Okay, so we got the Kings. Ooh,
a little bit of a zag there. They've not been anywhere towards winning basketball in recent memory, let alone being in position for a play-in. So teams I am keeping out potentially. So I don't have Portland in, for instance. I don't have Houston in, for instance. And one could make a point that Portland would be in over Sacramento, but I got Sacramento at 10. Who do you have?
That is interesting. The Sacramento Kings. Let me pull up what I had up because we're going backwards. Let's go to the West. I'm gonna take Portland. I'm gonna take Portland at 10. I think at 10. I just can't say Sacramento because Lord, that place was a dumpster fire. And we'll see. But
I'm zagging.
I get it. You got to because some of these picks will be right, but there's going to be some surprises that we just didn't foresee coming. So if we're going backwards, that means we're going up to 9. And then 9 for me, which may get some people a little startled up.
We're going to say the same thing.
I got the Lakers.
I got the Lakers too.
Okay. That's an improvement because obviously they did not make the playoffs last year, and the Spurs even made the playoffs game. But
yep.
Yeah, they didn't make the play in. So
now, granted, I think they can make it into. I think they can win both of those games potentially, depending on where they're at health wise. But I have them at least in the play in, correct? So obviously they not a lot of locker change or not a lot of roster change or handcuff. It's still, I think they're going to try to make some move with their. I don't think LeBron signs there. I'll be honest. I don't think LeBron signs there without an agreement to trade their 27 and 29 for him to re-up on his contract he just did. So where those two picks go, there's been a lot of buzz about Indiana. Who knows? But, for the Lakers, you still got a Russell Westbrook problem. Kendrick Nunn is projected to be back and playing healthy. They bring back Dennis Schroeder. Again, what's Pat Bev and Westbrook going to look like? That'll be interesting too. So again, just they signed Juan Toscano Anderson from the Warriors. Again, just Thomas Bryant's going to get some minutes at center. They get Lonnie Walker from the Spurs, who's still relatively young, shooting guard. Austin Reeves played a lot of minutes for them last year. But again, this is going to be LeBron, AD, and who they put around them to hit timely threes and play defense. So I have them at 9 as well.
100% agree. We're going to see. They're going to be a circus all over again.
Martin, who are your two other teams to be in the play-in game, the 7-8 seeds, to host for me, the Lakers and Kings, and for you to host the Lakers and Blazers?
I got the Timberwolves at 8.
Even with Gobert?
I'm not really the biggest fan of his. I'm not going to lie to you, but even with Gobert, I still have them at 8. And then this is tough. 7. I just feel like they're going to take a step back. I have the Mavericks at 7.
Okay. We might land in similar spots, close-wise here, depending on who your 6 team is. But at 8, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. I think losing Jalen Brunson is going to hurt. And the Mavs, again, made the West Finals last year. They've got Luka. They're going to be frisky. They pick up Christian Wood. I think everybody's trying to see, again, was that a steal or was that hey, this guy still can't play defense but can still get you 20-10 kind of thing from the Rockets. So I have the Mavs at 8. Still looking for that second fiddle really or third fiddle for Luka. And I have the fading, burning out Phoenix Suns at 7.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Is that too low?
No, because I have them. I think I have them at 6. Yeah, I have them at 6. I think.
So,
yeah, at 6.
They give DeAndre 8 in the bag. They let him sign his sheet for Indiana, only to match it within 3 hours. There's reports that he still hasn't talked with Monty Williams. Jay Crowder's he's out. He doesn't want on the team anymore. So you still got Bridges, Chris Paul, another year of mileage on him, another year of a lot of mileage on him. Still got yourself some Devin Booker. There's still some pieces there, but I think that series was eye opening against the Mavericks. I think the clock's about ready to strike midnight on, what are they doing to move stuff around.
No,
At 6, I have the Timberwolves.
Okay, so you have them up.
I think there's something to be said about the acquisition of Gobert in terms of, again, for all the successes we saw in the Cavs last year, again, with having 2 perennial 7-foot defenders who can, protect the paint, protect the rim, can step out in the mid-range and contest and stuff too. I think there's something to be said about the length there, in addition to, obviously, again, the rising superstar that is Anthony Edwards. along with Cat. And, again, I think they're trying to probably move on from D'Lo. I really like the pickup of Slow-Mo from Memphis too. I think that'll be impactful in terms of some bench depth and stuff as well. Obviously, they gave up a haul for Gobert, so this has to work. But again, I like the Twin Towers kind of feel there in the Twin City.
Gotcha. Number 5. Who do you have at 5?
Number 5, I have the New Orleans Pelicans.
Same here.
They've got so much depth. I love their again, I mean, Zion, he looks like he slimmed down a little bit. I mean, again, that's always a perpetual worry. Again, the kind of play and run that New Orleans had with Ingram. Again, you got to work on who's touching the ball and getting shots and stuff. I mean, they've got depth with Valanciunas and Hayes in the post. CJ McCollum, I think, is not going to put up quite the numbers we're used to him seeing, just with Zion needing the ball and stuff now. But again, I just like their team. They re-up Larry Nance. They got great defender in Herb Jones, Mr. Steal Your Ball, and Jose Alvarado. They've got some depth here too. I mean, I wish we could have seen EJ Liddell play before losing his rookie season to the ACL, but we got them at number 5. Number 4, I have the hustling Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, whoa!
So our number 2 seed from last year. I think they're gonna really hurt from not having Anthony Melton anymore, who's now also, I forgot to mention, is on the Sixers now. I think he played such a huge role for them. Again, this is not a predictor of playoff success. We could be splitting hairs again. This could be they're 2 games back from the 1 seed or the 2 seed or something crazy. But I've got Memphis at number 4.
Okay. I have a team who I've always been super high on, and if they've been fully healthy, they could have made Western Conference Finals and maybe the finals. I got Denver at 4.
You got Denver sliding a little bit. Okay.
I
with
do.
Getting back Murray and Porter.
Well, technically, they were the 6th seed last year, so they'd be going up to.
Okay, good point. Yeah, I mean, it's tough.
So that's who I have it for. And your Memphis thing, it's not even that crazy because I have Memphis at 3.
Okay. And again, so for me, Memphis also factoring in, Jaren Jackson's going to miss time to start the year. It's going to cost him some wins. As good as he is, he's on injury. So there's that piece there too. So I've been amazed that Ja's already on a basketball court with, his injury at the end of the playoffs for their run. So, but still, obviously, good team. Danny Green, who knows what's left of him in the tank to come in and pop some threes. I like some of the rookies they've picked up. Jake LaRavia, Kennedy Chandler, point guard from Tennessee. Again, I think it's just proven I've got some young guys in there to see. But, again, I've got them in contention for sure. At number 3, I have the Martin-endorsed Los Angeles Clippers. With the return of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and the return from 2 years off of basketball, essentially, of Mr. John Wall.
I see no problem with it. I had them, which is crazy to say, I had them 1 up, and I had them as my 2 seed for all those same reasons. Ooh. And to think that I know, me giving them love. Don't know how many games Kawhi is going to play in the regular season because he is load management himself. But this team was 42-40 without their 2 best players in the Western Conference. Just think of it from respect. Like, they were 42-40. The Lakers were 33-49. And they still, LeBron played most of the games. Russell Westbrook's there. Like, the Clippers had no disrespect to Reggie Jackson, but.
No, you're exactly right.
But with that, too, it shows how important coaching and personnel can be in the NBA because Ty Lue is one of the top, Five best coaches in the
Three.
NBA. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
So 42 and 40
I don't
in
know
the
if he's
West.
the Bill Belichick of basketball, but he is great.
So 42 and 40 in the West without your two best players. And now you get them back. And you are going to see what John Wall potentially is going to do. And also shout out to John Wall talking about mental health and all of that's always important. But I've been hard on all three of those guys, my basketball loving life. So I got them at the 2.
So I assume your number 1 would be the defending champs, then, correct? By process elimination.
Yep, you're number 1 until you're knocked off and proven otherwise.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, for me, so my number 1 is also the Warriors. Same concept again, is come and take it. And my number 2, I have making the rise from 6 last year to 2 is the Denver Nuggets. Again, with the aforementioned return of Michael Porter Jr., with the return of Jamal Murray, they pick up Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I really like what we've seen out of Bones Highland, their rookie from last year. Again, so they've got to stay healthy. I mean, that's the big thing too. But I mean, you still got Will Barton, Will Barton, Aaron Gordon. I believe they still have Monte Morris. I don't think they traded him to. Why am I thinking they traded him to Washington?
Oh, I don't think they did.
All right, on paper, the record will be he's still on Denver, and then of course the Joker. Jeff Green's corpse still around because he ultimately keep getting them checks guy. Jeff Green, love him. Bruce Brown, Ish Smith is your backup point guard. But I've got some number 2. So recapping the West for me, I've got Warriors, Nuggets, Clippers, Grizz as your 4 teams hosting playoff games. 5, 6 Pelicans, T-Wolves, and then your 7 through 10 Suns, Mavs, Lakers, Kings in the play-in.
And I got Warriors 1, Clippers 2, Memphis 3, Denver 4, Pelicans 5, Suns 6, Mavericks 7, Timberwolves 8, Lakers 9. And our only differing team is the 10th seed. I just have Portland there. So that's the only difference. We have the same teams 1 through 9, just in different spots.
Martin, let's talk most valuable player as we wrap things up.
Sure. Do you want to know some Vegas odds on who they think is going to be MVP?
I do want to know some Vegas odds.
All right. I'll give you the top 5, and then you can ask for a name, and I'll tell you if they're on the list. So, number 1, Luka Doncic, plus 450. Number 2, Joel Embiid, plus 500 odds. Number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo, plus 550. Number 4, KD, Kevin Durant, plus 1,000. And number 5, Nikola Jokic, plus 1,000. Those are the top 5. If you want to know if someone else is on here, I can give you their odds as well.
We know LeBron's on the list.
He is at plus 1,800, tied with Kawhi Leonard.
Did you say Jokic?
Yep, Jokic was I guess tied for 4th and 5th with KD, plus 1,000.
Okay. Martin, so who do you have winning the MVP? And let's do 2. I wouldn't be surprised if 1, they're not. There'll be people on the list you just read that are in contention, but I would not be surprised if they ended up winning. So give me who you have as your MVP this year. And then who would you not be surprised wins it? 2 players.
I am going to, I've picked Kevin like 2 times and it's failed me. I'm going to go Giannis, MVP. Like if I had to pick now, if I will not be surprised, and if when sports betting becomes legal where we live, not be surprised at plus 1,400 odds, John Morant.
I like it. I'm going to land in a similar spot. So I had Giannis as well.
Okay.
This would be his third MVP, correct?
Yeah, if he wins.
Okay. So 2 other players I will have in the mix as well. I'll have the Joker again, the reigning 2-time MVP. And I will also have young Ja Morant. And I think it's important to note, like, it's always important, I think, to have on your list somebody who's never won it before for whatever reason. Like, it's going to be the voters like the guy who's never won it before, even if he doesn't have the best season. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why it's the case. Like, we're going to look back and we're going to laugh when LeBron James retires from 22 years of basketball and only has 4 MVPs. Then we're going to say, hey, in 22 seasons of LeBron James, and right now through 19, he's only had maybe 1 season where he's, barely hit 50 games. I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. He played, I think, 64 last year, 65. That you're going to tell me in 19 seasons the man was only the 4th best. The man was only MVP 4 times. He was only the best player in the league 4 times. That's going to be a joke. And part of it's because of the process, I think, just in terms of who votes, how they vote. And again, just this itch to give it to somebody new. So again, that doesn't bode no well in the favor of Giannis. Again, Embiid's still looking for his first one if he can continue to stay healthy, those kinds of things. I mean, I think we were splitting hairs last year between him and Joker, but Joker had a better season last year than his first MVP season, so that made sense. But for that reason, I think Ja is very appropriate to have in there because the voters have shown, hey, we like to give it to people who haven't normally had it before.
I'm also going to throw one more. Well, you did Jokic and Ja, so I will throw in one more person who also fits that.
Then I get to throw in one more.
That is fine. That's fine. Because Ja's never won it, obviously.
We'll call it the in the mix bunch. The in the mix.
Okay. And I can't believe I'm really doing this, but a person who hasn't won and could get all the buzz and storylines if he plays, Kawhi Leonard.
I like that. You're right. I mean, again, if he's going to be as high as we've seen and everything else, yeah. I mean, I think he's absolutely up there. I mean, I think for the best case for Kawhi is, again, he's potentially defensive player of the year too, or he's arguably that good. Numbers wise with George, versus the other ones who are the workhorses for their teams. Again, I don't think he has to go out and average 30 a night, which LeBron James very well could have to do again, which Joel Embiid very well could have to do again, those kinds of things. But if you've got again, when he's on, he's the best player on both sides of any wing in the league. Again, Giannis has a lot to say about that, but I mean, yeah, I like that pick, Martin. I'd say for me, I'm going to go with Wardell, Stephen Curry.
Okay.
So, again, I think as crazy as it sounds, the more Curry gets up there in age, I think he's just going to keep chucking from distance. He doesn't want to get in the paint. He doesn't want to be put in a lot of pick and rolls because he's being sought out defensively and spending a lot of energy that way. Dude just pulling up from every pull-up there is. If there's a stop sign, he's shooting.
No, that's a good one, too, because he has 2 regular season MVPs.
And that pains me to say. I'm not a big. Obviously, I'm a little biased against the Warriors, but I recognize greatness.
But I do want to say something that you said about the LeBron thing with like the 20 years. Well, 22, whatever the hell he's going to be done.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing more to add to it. It's just something that happens every generation. Because if you look at Michael Jordan, I mean, he only had 5. Sure, he got the 6 for 6 in the finals, but
he only played like 13 seasons, didn't he?
Yes, he only played 13, but I mean, shoot, his rookie year, the dude was averaging 29, like 7 and like 7.
Solid point, Barton. Let's maybe a good place to land the plane here for this preseason primer podcast. So you talked about once in a generation type players, or you alluded to it.
Yes.
This week we had 2 highly televised games with overseas French phenom Victor Wembanyama. We've heard the buzz. We watched him drop like 37 in one game. Did he go over 40 in another?
I believe so, yeah.
Something crazy. So we've got a dude who's legitimately 7'4", 7'5", alien. So like I think, Kristaps Porzingis is like 7'2", very, very long, can somewhat handle the ball. This dude handles the ball. This guy fades away on jumpers. He doesn't have to jump and block shots. He just puts his arms up. I mean, he looks like the Slender Man, like creepy, made up fictional guy in the woods on a basketball court. Like somebody on 2K just said, let me make his height like ridiculous, and he's like as tall as a shot clock. This guy is a freak. I've watched a lot of basketball, injuries. I've seen injuries derail Greg Oden's career, who I thought was going to be great. We've seen injuries derail a lot of players' careers. I always worry about when you start getting folks that high who can manipulate and stop on a dime and put on burst speed and everything else, how much that goes into the joints and the knees, and how sustainable is that from a kinesiology perspective. But Martin, I think this guy is the next. Again, I'm not saying he's going to have the career LeBron James has had, but there hasn't been a guy on the table to potentially draft from an NBA franchise perspective like this since LeBron James.
Okay. So
I'm telling you, buy stock, and when there's rookie cards, buy them all up, because in 20 years, you're going to make a lot of money. That's what I'm telling you.
that I do not disagree with at all. Now, in terms of career and stuff, I'm one of those people where I got to see you play in like the real, like in the NBA, to say that just because of LeBron James. Like as soon as LeBron, I'll never forget October 30th when he debuted against the Sacramento Kings. It's just like, I was like, all right, this guy can really do it in the league. And obviously we know where he's gone from there. Because basketball is tough, man. Because there's players who we didn't think would be what they are, and with hard work and all that stuff, a la, we already said his name, Steph Curry, who has the same amount of championships, and if you want an equal amount of success as LeBron or Kevin Durant. So I have to see it. I don't want to buy into the hype because something might happen, like injuries and whatnot, but from what I've seen, he's phenomenal. But like, I don't know if I want to put him in that next generational thing, because there could be some kid who's not getting enough publicity right now who might take over his generation.
You're Kevin Durant on an island next season with Victor Wembanyama guarding you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're Kevin Durant, and you've just been able to shoot over top of anybody at any time, every time, and you're going to pull up. This is the best human being somebody could draw up to defend that.
But is his body going to maintain
scary.
the league? That's
Kevin Durant is scary.
We'll see. We'll see. We got to see if his body can withstand it once he gets there.
Like nobody's ever tanked before. It's a two-team race between the Jazz and the San Antonio Spurs. Winner gets potentially everything we're describing this young man to be.
That's true. You're gonna have to see. Evan, anything else?
No, we've poured a lot into this. I'm curious to see where we I'll use my second landing of the plane analogy of the podcast to say where the plane lands on some of our predictions. But no, I'm just excited. It's been good to see some of these new faces and new places. And Donovan Mitchell already had a really good first preseason game last week against the Sixers. We'll play the Sixers again on Wednesday. I'm excited to see the Cavs in more national spotlight games, and just see again where some of these things we haven't seen the Clippers as the Clippers normally are in recent years. Interested to see how the T-Wolves and Gobert go, and if we're right on the Lakers, or if the Hawks do surprise us with DeJounte Murray and There's going to be some wild spots. There's going to be January, February. We're going to see some teams probably in some weird spots where maybe they won't ultimately land, but, 1 seed, 2 seed for a couple months, and you're like, whoa, I didn't see this coming. And again, unfortunately, injuries are part of the game. We know that's going to happen. That's a predictable E. But I'm just excited for the season, Martin. Let's get it underway. Like you said, it's a start off the pod. It's the best time of the year.
I do want to, because want to say one last thing before we do go off. Again, just thank you everyone for listening, watching, however you do it, YouTube, Apple, Google, the podcast. We greatly appreciate that. And I guess I do want to say its opening night is the 18th, the TNT doubleheader. Just want to get your quick predictions. Sixers at Boston. Who you got?
I've got good question. I've got the Sixers.
I'll take Boston. Lakers at Golden State. That's going to be ring night. And again, season starts Tuesday, the 18th on TNT. They get 2 games, and then the rest start on the Wednesday, the 19th.
I'll take the Warriors in that one.
Okay, I agree.
It's closer than we think.
Ring nights are always strange because you get the emotion of that stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lakers make a statement, but we will see. But with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. NBA season is starting a week or so and some change. You're going to have now Evan on basketball. You're going to have the football coverage. So the L7C will be covering you in all the sports. With that being said, the L7C podcast signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.